This just in, Trudeau is a Catholic. Speaking of faux Catholics, rumor has it that Pope Francis is ready to go full Stalin on those rigid Latin Mass priests. Plus, police on horseback trample the Canadian protesters, while other police in squad cars stand with them. How is this going to end? Meanwhile, COVID mandates are abruptly dropped from Minnesota to New York and from Austria to Sweden. Why? All that and more tonight from the Remnant Underground. Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Michael Matt, and this is the Remnant Underground. Tonight we're going to talk about some good news. Some good news and some heroes. Because the thing is, good things are happening. Now, I realize that all of a sudden Joe Biden is trying to get us into another Cold War. The Russians are coming, right? Everybody from, Poughkeepsie to Dubuque is freaking out because of the plight of the Ukrainians, all of a sudden, because that's what they were told to do on the news last night. But setting aside that nonsense, which is what it is, of course, good things are happening on a much more fundamental level, and the good things that are happening could be why we are looking to start a war, a distraction. Once again, the old wag the dog scenario. The past 2 years, as we've talked about, have been tough. What we've seen, though, in the course of that time is globalism at its worst, globalist insanity. Living through that has brought out the worst in us, as Americans, as Canadians, as Europeans, but it's also done something else. It's brought out the very best in us.
Whoa! Hey, partner, you been playing here for a while?
Yeah.
Yeah? What do you think of all this craziness? Do you think it's worth it?
Yeah.
Yeah? Why do you think it's worth it?
For our freedom.
We've seen a side of ourselves that I think maybe many of us thought was gone forever. Our humanity is coming back. Now, we knew this was coming. It couldn't go the way it was going forever. Back in 2019, in fact, I was in Rome. We were at, my friend John Henry Weston had a conference over there, Voice of the Family conference with some of his allies, and I was happy to be there. And at that time, I spoke about what I believed to be true, that there were heroes, that there were saints, that were in the wings, waiting to come out and do great things as the world sort of imploded all around them.
We're living through this. Nothing is bigger than the bride of Christ raising and hoisting the flag of surrender. If this happens, it's a huge story, and great people are going to come to the defense of the church. Heroes and saints are right around the corner now. Let's prepare our children for a crusade, and let's inspire them.
Now, that was just before COVID landed. That was the Amazon Synod was raging, and darkness was about to descend over the entire earth. The churches were to close, and all hell was to break loose. But you know what? Heroes and saints were right around the corner. And today, 2 years after that conference in Rome, I don't know about you, but I see heroes everywhere. Folks that I'm proud to stand with. Yeah, they may not all be up to snuff theologically quite yet, but they see the enemies of the faith. They see the enemies of the cross as their enemies.
So I'm Constable Erin Howard, coming to you from Ontario, Canada. I really wanted to give a shout out to all the truckers. I think what you guys are doing is incredible. You're fighting for our rights and freedoms. And right now it feels like we're a little bit at war, and those rights and freedoms are at stake. So you guys are honestly true heroes. What you're doing is just incredible.
Sports figures. Hadn't we all just given up on sports figures? Overpaid babies whining. That's even changing. Today we see sports heroes, some of the best in the world, standing up and saying, you know what? No. We're done. There's more to life than making money and being famous. Sometimes heroes don't win the game. Sometimes they don't even play the game.
Are you prepared to forego the chance to be the greatest player that ever picked up a racket, statistically, because you feel so strongly about this jab?
Yes. I do.
This is the sort of thing that was not anticipated by the lunatics of Davos. They didn't see this kind of selflessness coming to the fore, setting the example, changing the narrative. You see? And this is the very definition of a hero, what he's doing right now. And he's not alone. This guy, Enes Kanter Freedom, I don't know much about him, but he's apparently one of the great premier professional basketball players of the day. He's also a patriot. You remember this?
So I started speaking out against the Turkish government, and they revoked my passport, they put my dad in jail, and my dad had to put a statement out and saying we are disowning Enes. So, people should feel very lucky and blessed to be in a country like America where there's human rights. And obviously America having her own problems, but change can only happen in America with freedom of speech.
Well, that was then. That was a few months ago. This week, that same athlete, because he spoke out against an atheistic dictatorship, a communist regime in Beijing, he's been waived, and then he was traded, and now it looks like he's done. Or I should say the NBA, the National Basketball Association, is done with him. What is that other than the action of a hero? And then you've got these truckers up in Canada, we're talking a lot about them, standing for something higher and paying a price, a serious price right now. Here's one of them. Her name is Tamara Lich.
It is a global cultural movement which is pushing back against Build Back Better, against cultural Marxism, against progressivism, against Klaus Schwab, against Bill Gates, against the World Economic Forum.
Well, today, that same woman sitting in that chair, today she's in jail. And we talk about going to jail for what we believe. These people are actually doing it. She knew the risk. This is the night before she was arrested.
There's a pretty good chance. Well, I think it's inevitable at this point. But I'll probably be going somewhere tomorrow where I'll be getting 3 square meals a day. And that's okay. I'm okay with that. And I want you to know that I'm not afraid.
That is the face, those are the words, those are the tears of a selfless hero who's literally giving up everything for her children, for her country, for her beliefs. And that's going to have ramifications. It's going to have a ripple effect for a long time, people seeing that. And this is why the demons up in Canada right now and around the world and on social media, this is why they hate her. This is why they're screaming at her. And they're shrieking because they want their lattes in downtown Ottawa and the truckers are just blocking the streets. They're a bunch of Nazis. That's all they got. Completely unimaginative, doing everything they can to tear down a heroic woman like that, who's standing there like Joan of Arc for her country. And half the people up there don't even deserve to be saved. She knows it, but she's doing it anyway. She's suffering and sacrificing anyway. And I would say to her, please God, if she's watching our program, don't listen to the demons, Tamara. The world will never forget your truckers. They will never forget your example. They will never forget your story. You guys, you are the ones who stood up to the slings and the arrows of woke mob. That's all they are, the mob, the same old revolutionary mob that likes to spill blood and has been spilling blood for century after century after century. They're at it again.
What's happening here? Wow, what is this lady doing? Trampling horses. Stop it! Stop it!
And in the middle of that woke mob are heroes like you, Tamara. Even when prime ministers and presidents and popes ordered you to stand down for the sake of truth, love, country, family, you said no. And God bless every one of your truckers.
But those who are willing to give their life for this cause, you need much more than be treated with the rest, with fines, with losing the insurance, stuff like that. Even somebody can go take my house. I don't care.
Oh yeah, we're not going anywhere.
I'm not moving. I'm staying all the way.
The guy have a son. I don't want him seeing dad in handcuffs, but
this is the price you pay for freedom.
They're not going to be making any movies about the guys up there screaming out their windows about their lattes and the truckers that are in the way. But they will be making movies about these people, these truckers, these blue-collar workers, these dads, these heroes. You know, and our children one day will be telling their children, our grandchildren, the stories of the Canadian truckers who stood against the entire New World Order and won their freedom.
Your protest, dear Canadian truck driver friends, joins a worldwide chorus that wants to oppose the establishment of the New World Order.
The little ferret disagrees, because that's what little ferrets do. And what do little ferrets do these days when they don't have an imaginative thought, when they've never had an original thought, when any of the epithets that they can come up with must first have appeared in motion pictures? Well, they accuse the good guys of, you guessed it, Nazism.
Conservative Party members can stand with people who wave swastikas. They can stand with people who wave the Confederate flag. That's
the best you can do, ferret man? Of course, there's no actual swastika flags, are there? We talked about this last time. Everybody up there has got a camera. There's never been a populace that's more equipped, better equipped with cameras and thus photographic evidence of your Nazi flags than the folks in Ottawa. But not a single one on TV. Just anti-hero Justin telling us there are Nazi flags, hate flags up there. Just Justin Trudeau, the little ferret, talking out of his, well, lower spinal extremity once again, whether it's French or English. That's pretty much what he's doing all the time. And this, by the way, has consequences. This, by the way, is what happens to good people, to regular people, to patriotic people, to hard-working people, tax-paying citizens, Justin. When twisted little ferrets like you use reckless language like that, this is what happens.
You know, we have been called terrorist for the first 36 hours. We were inundated with hatred, with threats of violence. People threatened our team on the phone, telling them we're coming to get you. We're going to throw bricks through your window. You'll pay for this, you Nazi supporter. I personally have been called a disgusting pig of a woman. We're just a little gelato shop. And all we want to do is make really good gelato. And so to have our, to be targeted and have our staff targeted and our children targeted, because I decided to reach in my pocket and, fill the gas can of some guy I didn't want to see sleep in the cold overnight. You know what you can learn from that clip? And we're seeing this in Minnesota. Remember, we border. We got our northern border, Minnesota, where we are, is the borders with Canada. And we can see from here, the truckers have already won. Many of them are going to have to go to jail. They're going to be dragged through the mud. They're going to be persecuted. But they've already won. Right where I am, in right now, Minnesota, about 30 miles north of Minneapolis and St. Paul. The vax mandates that they brought in just a couple of weeks ago were suddenly and very mysteriously dropped last week. Just like that. No more requirement to show your vax pass before you get a beer or before you go in and get a steak in a restaurant in St. Paul, Minneapolis. Why do you suppose that is? Well, you know why. Because trucks have wheels, and trucks are coming here. Trucks are coming everywhere where this nonsense won't stop, where this dictatorial tyranny won't stop. You see? This is why I've said so many times resistance is not futile. St. Paul and Minneapolis is proof. Whew. Vax mandate's gone. Remember what that was all about? They wanted the whole world to be required to carry some sort of digital pass. In every city, in every state, and in every country, where the vax requirement, the digital pass fails, the passport fails, that's a victory for us. Even Austria, which went full-on Nazi just a month ago, even Austria now is going to lift the COVID restrictions. What do you know? Do you suppose it has anything to do with the Canadian truckers? By March 5th, it's going to be all gone in Austria, including proof of vaccination in that country, too. They're waiving it. They're done. They're done with it. It's not working. And by the way, in addition to the truckers in Canada sending a message the whole world was paying attention to, what else was going on in Austria just a couple days before they dropped those mandates? This was.
And Mary protects us from giving way to hatred or despair. To hate is to lose. The devil does not care what we fight about, only he wants us to fight each other, to hate our enemies, to desire their destruction. So if we love our enemies, we have already won the most important fight. And Mary, the Mother of God, has won this victory already.
Well, what do you know? Maybe it's a miracle. Sweden, by the way, dropped all their domestic COVID restrictions this week as well. Why? I mean, just check that out, ladies and gentlemen. The Sacre-Cœur, the Sacred Heart of Jesus. Flags waving. The Sacred Heart in the streets of Stockholm. The fleur-de-lis as well. Shout out to our Remnant correspondent in Sweden, who shall remain nameless, but he's a traditional Catholic doing great work. People are finding God in the darkness of the lockdown. And this is not something that hasn't happened in the past. Alexander Solzhenitsyn was thrown into a Soviet gulag. Guess what he found there? He found God. He found light. He found his faith. That is happening right now all around the world. We're living through that. I can speak of my own personal experience. I was in a grocery store the other day. The guy comes up to me and says, "Michael Matt, right?" I said, "Yeah, that's me." He says, "Congratulations. You are the reason that I started going back to Mass again last week." That's pretty cool, you know? A Lutheran guy stopped me on the street and he said, "I was raised Catholic, but because of your show, I became a Lutheran. Because of your show, I came back to the Catholic Church last week. Thank you. Thank you for your show." Now, I know what this is all about. I have no trouble keeping this in perspective. It's not me. These people are finding out that the church is still here. You see, because it was hidden from them. It was hidden behind the great facade by our friends, well, like Francis and his buddies. It's hidden from them. They're finding it again now. Traditional Catholicism, traditional Catholic priests, families all over the world, still here. But you got to get past the fake and gay facade that they've thrown up to try to prevent you from finding the truth. And the reality is, especially in times like this, real men, real women, they want to practice a real religion. Nobody's playing games anymore. We're done with the ecumenical dialogue BS, which is what it is, quite frankly. Forgive my French. But these people, we've all seen the demons. We've seen the dark side, right? And now we want to find the angels. We want to stand on the side of the angels. We want to find truth. We want to find authentic Christianity. See? Now here on this show, we go after the fake and gay in our own church, in the Catholic Church, every week. And you know why? Because we want and we need, we desperately must have the real church for ourselves and for our children. You know, this is the church that we grew up in. This is the faith that was handed down to us by our fathers and our mothers. It was almost lost. It was difficult to find, but we found it. And now it's our mission to spend the rest of our lives trying to bring that faith to you. Anybody who else has been disenfranchised, who's been thrown out, who's been completely disgusted with the church of accompaniment, you know, which is actually the church of abandonment for sinners like us. You see? Because the reality is, no matter what we hear, this is not Catholic. And neither is this. This is not Catholic. And I'm sorry, but this is not Catholic either. So the bottom line is this. Behind all the fake and gay, the real church, the bride of Christ, is inviolate, pure, worth living for, and yes, worth dying for. That's the divine element of the church. What we oppose every day on this show is the human element of the church, which has been infiltrated not by saints, but by demons, in my opinion. But the church is still there. She is mother, she is home, she is castle, she is hope, she is refuge, especially for sinners like us, and we will fight for her. And these bastards, these are not her children. Make no mistake about it. These are not the children of Mother Church. These are the children of darkness who've put Mother Church in chains. That's their job. And it's our job to stand with her until God intervenes and saves his church. So yeah, we attack them every day. We expose them every day because we remember what the church once was. And we believe that we have an obligation before God to speak the truth and to tear away the fake and gay mask that they put over our church. And we will go to our graves, yes, mocking them.
Tyrants rely on fear. Public displays of fearlessness undermine their control. Make a joke of them, because they're miserable bastards who want us all to be miserable.
I know. Some of you, oh, you shouldn't be so mean. You shouldn't make fun of them. What would Jesus do? Yeah, I don't know. Take a whip to them? Probably. But I'm not Jesus, and I will expose them so that the would-be lost souls that I talk to every single day can, through whatever assistance I can provide, can find the true church of Jesus Christ. Our critics say that we scandalize the little ones by speaking the truth about what they're doing to our church. These people, these guys, who right now are known mostly for diddling children and then covering up for it. You're worried about me being mean and scandalizing people? I gotta be more sweet? Really? You're watching the wrong show. I don't feel like that's my obligation at all. Francis and his weak and emasculated bishops, they're the source of scandal. They're the ones who are scandalizing our children and, quite frankly, scandalizing all of us. And for us, decrying that scandal, we help our brothers and sisters find the true church. We don't recognize this church anymore.
And here we have a picture of Bishop Gabino Zavala, Auxiliary of Los Angeles, as he reverences the altar, moves around to take his place.
Right now, rumors are flying that on March 2nd, Francis will once again come after the Latin Mass and those rigid priests who offer it. What's he doing this for? Now, whether you're Catholic or not, do you want to know what one of those rigid priests that are such a threat to Team Francis, do you want to know what one of them looks like?
The three things that were the basis of my conversion in prison, the scriptures, repentance, and charity, that led to an encounter with Christ that say that changed prison from hell to heaven. I've never been so happy in my life, and I never expect to be so happy again after weeks of hell. After I came out of prison, I was searching for that same Christ and searching for something proportionate to him. And it took a long time. And finally, in the traditional Mass, let's say, I found something proportionate to the same Christ who turned prison from hell to heaven.
Now, I realize that seems like a different image of the priest that you've been seeing lately, because he's not sexually assaulting children, and he's not talking like a fop, right? He's a man. He's also the type of priest that the modern Vatican is trying to crush. Want another example?
Is that why you're wearing that gear on the mountain? Just in case maybe you had a chance to help someone and talk to them about what you're passionate about?
Sure, yeah. Well, it's like a first responder. You know, it's easier to do your job if you wear your uniform. And so it's the same with the priest. You know, we always, especially in my community, we always wear the cassock every day. That's our normal clothing. And it's a sign of, you know, who we are truly. And people can see and ask if they need the help of a priest, ask for prayers.
Ooh, pretty rigid, huh? A terrible guy. These are the rigid enemies of Pope Francis, my friends. As a Catholic, it's embarrassing to have to say that. That's the kind of priest that our Pope is trying to crush, being the bully dictator that he is. And just as these are the rigid enemies of a little man like Justin Trudeau.
Every overpass is packed with Canadians. Look at this right here. Look at this. Yes! God bless Canada.
And now, even liberals have had enough of the little ferret, Justin Trudeau, who on some level still thinks of himself as a Catholic.
He was talking about people who are not vaccinated. He said they don't believe in science. They're often misogynistic, often racist. No, they're not.
That was not smart of him at all.
Right. He said, but they take up space. And with that, we have to make a choice in terms of a leader as a country. Do we tolerate these people? It's like, tolerate them. Now you do sound like Hitler.
Yep, that's our Justin. One of Klaus Schwab's young global leaders, as we showed you a few weeks ago, along with Emmanuel Macron and that little nut job down in New Zealand. Little monsters, every one of them. Bill Maher is absolutely right. That's what they are. And that's what the future of the world's going to look like. Those are your statesmen of tomorrow. Francis is right with these guys at this point. Pedophile priests, they run free all over the place. Everybody, they think Catholic priests, they think pedophile, right? It's a hideous and horrific scandal. Well, Francis is doing what? He's cracking down on the Latin Mass goers and all their children. You know, if Francis would go after the child diddlers, if you go after the child abusers as zealously as he goes after traditional Catholics, maybe we'd take him seriously. The reality is he does not. He is just another little dictator leading the Catholic Church and now into God knows what kind of international criminal investigation here in the next few months. Why? Because he's recklessly backing his globalist friends and their big pharma experiments. You probably know where I'm going with this. I'm sorry if you're watching us on YouTube. I can't elaborate because it'll get us taken down. So check out remnant-tv.com or check out our stuff on Rumble to see why this scientist, this leading authority on COVID-19, has called on the Vatican to immediately drop their mandates, which he says are in violation of a critical code of bioethics. It's a huge story. I'll put the link below to Edward Penton's interview of this particular scientist. Do you understand why, then, we've been making such a big deal out of these truckers? Do you understand why we're standing with people like that? Do you understand why Archbishop Carlo Maria Vigano is standing with the Canadian truckers? Here's what he's saying, and I absolutely agree with every word of it.
We discover that we are no longer willing to passively suffer the destruction of our world imposed by a cabal of unscrupulous criminals, thirsty for power and money. In this relentless attack on the traditional world, not only your way of life and your identity have been affected, but also your possession, your activities, and your work. This is the Great Reset.
Friends, I'm going to close on this. I want to say, especially to our Catholic viewers, but no, to all the viewers, that the fight for traditional Catholic restoration has always been about this. Archbishop Vigano just put his finger right on it. And those truckers, although they don't know the details of the theology behind all of this, they are fighting the same enemy. Now, we've always known this. They have always intended to do this. This is why they went to war against our traditional doctrine. They went to war against the traditional liturgies. They went to war against the traditional family in the Catholic Church, so they could take the church in a new direction to bless this new globalist, secularist, brotherhood of man, Masonic regime. That's what's going on. So the Catholics who are just figuring this out, to bishops, yes, your excellencies, to cardinals, to priests, it truly is beyond desperate. Truckers, blue-collar workers are coming to understand exactly what happens to them when your church absents herself from this situation, worse, when she goes along with it. You have to take a stand right now. We're talking about freedom, liberty, the end of the world as we knew it, the end of borders, the end of nations, the end of countries, a demonic lockdown of the world. Your excellencies and eminences and fathers and faithful Catholics, stand up and take your church back. Do what you can. We still outnumber them, but you gotta wake up. Stop with this worship of the Second Vatican Council, which was the great reset that put all of this in motion, which left hundreds of thousands of families abandoned by the church in the name of ecumenism and equity and dialogue, which has accomplished nothing so far other than the ruination and destruction of the church. Do you want to end up on the wrong side of history here? Because you know what's going on, right? You're closing your eyes intentionally to what's happening in Rome because you're afraid of the ramifications. I get it, but you got to open your eyes. We just showed you a woman who's in jail today because she's not going to close her eyes anymore. She opened her eyes, doing the right thing. What's wrong with you? What's wrong with us? Why won't we do the same thing? Go to jail to stop this if it comes to that. You know what's happening. This is an assault on everything the Catholic Church stands for. This is an assault on the social kingship of Jesus Christ. And you know that without the social kingship of Jesus Christ, our entire civilization falls into chaotic despotism, just like what's happening right now. You know that. It's not a coincidence that these failed and false and apostate Catholics like Trudeau, like Pelosi, like this insane man, Joe Biden, a faithful Catholic who's demanding communion. It's not a coincidence that these failed apostate Catholics are leading the charge to lock down the world because they've abandoned Christ. They've abandoned the church. Bishops, priests especially, your duty is to oppose them with everything you have. Your duty not before men, but before God is to oppose this. You know this in your heart, so do it. And you don't have to be a traditional Catholic to see it. There's a priest, a Novus Ordo diocesan priest, who's doing everything he possibly can to support the truckers in Ottawa right now.
I need you to understand, or I want you to understand that because, you say, hey, the Catholic Church is lock and step with the agenda. Look at Pope Francis. And I'll just say this, Francis is Pope like Joe Biden is the president, okay? May Almighty God bless each and every one of you, protect you from all evil, and bring you victory. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
That's not easy to say, as a priest especially, but he did it. He's another one of those heroes, like the truckers themselves. Heroes, they're rising up. And the clans, the children of light, the army of God are more united right now than ever. Every time a priest speaks out, every time a bishop speaks out, every time a Vigano speaks out, every time a Schneider speaks out, every time a Berg speaks out, more and more regular people get courage, get the backbone to do what has to happen, to say what needs to be said. We all need to do this now. We all need to do our part to stand now while we can, while there's this moment of reprieve and collapse on the other side. They're going to come back. They're not going away. They're too invested. There will be a plan B. But in this little moment of reprieve, we need to stand our ground and get stronger and more committed than ever to doing the right thing. And we thank God at the same time, which is why we're talking about heroes tonight. We're so grateful for each other. We have found each other in the darkness. We have found each other. We're not alone. The children of light can see one another in the darkness. We recognize each other and we stand together. And now we drive trucks. We wear badges. We are doctors. We are nurses. We are news guys, we're bloggers, we're activists, we're students, we're athletes, we're children, we're priests, on snowboards sometimes. We're homeschool mom and dads in the trenches, on the front lines, keeping the faith, keeping hope and love alive, united in the love of God and in the love of neighbor. We will never comply to this new world order. We will never surrender. We've seen their face. We've seen these demons. We've looked into the eyes of the beast. We will never fall for this again. We are all Canadian truckers standing in the cold and showing the world that no matter what happens, no matter what they do to us, we will not stand down. We will stand for God, for country, and for freedom. I'm Michael Mann for Remnant TV. Keep the faith. Long live Christ the King. And we'll see you next week.